The sonar ping that changed everything echoed through Station Nereid's operations center at 0347 hours, 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific surface. I'd been monitoring deep-sea traffic for 6 years as station commander, but this acoustic signature made my coffee cup tremble in my hands. NYM, run that through the classifier again. I called across the cramped control room, watching the green phosphorescent trace crawl across my primary display. The metallic taste flooding my mouth wasn't from our recycled air system. It was pure cold fear. Already on it, Commander Solrik. NYM's fingers danced over her console, dark hair catching the blue glow of her screens. Acoustic signature matches heavy transport, but the radiation bloom. She paused, recalibrating sensors. Sir, we're reading weapons-grade isotopes. My stomach dropped faster than our emergency ballast tanks ever could. Weapons-grade. Down here in the Mendocino Deep, where nothing nuclear should exist except our own reactor, keeping us alive under crushing darkness. Corin, I need eyes on this. I gestured toward our nuclear safety inspector, who was nursing his third cup of synthetic coffee while reviewing yesterday's reactor logs. His weathered face went pale as he studied the readings over my shoulder. Jesus Christ, Solrik. That's not just nuclear material, it's fresh. High-energy signature means recent refinement, maybe weeks old. Corin's hand shook slightly as he reached for his radiation detector. Whatever's carrying that load is moving with purpose. The station hull groaned around us with that familiar deep-sea complaint, a sound that never stopped being unsettling even after 6 years of command. 3 kilometers of crushing black water pressed against our reinforced titanium shell, and now something carrying enough radioactive material to poison half the Pacific was moving through our designated monitoring zone. I activated my command tablet, pulling up crew assignments. 23 people aboard Station Nereid, including the 4 of us currently on operations watch. All of them depending on my decisions in the next few hours. The small photo-magnetic clip to my console, Marina's wedding on Monterey Bay, bright sunshine and genuine smiles, suddenly felt like evidence of a life that belonged to someone else. Tasia, plot those movement vectors. I turned to our navigation specialist, who'd been unusually quiet since the contact appeared. I need to know where that transport is heading. Something flickered across Tasia's angular features before she bent over her charts. Coordinates suggest northbound trajectory, but the depth profile doesn't match any standard shipping lanes. Her voice carried a strange undertone I couldn't place. Commander, this route is... The primary power grid stuttered, not our usual gentle load cycling, but a sharp, violent interruption that sent warning cascades across every console. Our depth indicators swung wildly before stabilizing at 3,047 meters. Emergency lighting flickered on briefly before the mains caught again. Engineering fault or external interference? I was moving toward the damage control station when NYM's voice cut through the sudden tension like sonar through deep water. Sir, I'm getting multiple contacts now. The original transport has company. My blood went ice cold despite the station's steady heating. How much company? 4 additional signatures, all carrying similar isotope loads. They're maintaining formations spacing consistent with military escort protocols. NYM's training kept her voice steady, but I caught the tremor. Commander, this isn't a transport. It's a convoy. 5 nuclear signatures, moving in formation through the deepest part of our sector. I'd seen enough classified briefs to know what that meant. Someone was moving serious hardware through international waters, using the ocean floor to avoid satellite detection. The pressure alarm chimed softly, a gentle reminder that our hull was experiencing stress fluctuations. Nothing critical yet, but in our business, yet was a word that could kill you. I positioned myself in front of the main tactical display, watching those 5 green dots move across our sector grid like malignant cells spreading through healthy tissue. Every regulation I'd memorized, every emergency protocol drilled into me during officer training, demanded immediate surface communication. Report first, investigate second. But our primary communications array had been showing intermittent transmission failures for 3 days straight. The repair technicians weren't scheduled for maintenance rotation until next week. Surface contact was possible through our emergency backup, but that meant revealing our exact position to anyone monitoring military frequencies. Corin, radiation hazard assessment. Worst case scenario if one of those transports suffers containment failure at current position. He was already running calculations on his tablet, face growing grimmer with each equation. At 3,000 meters depth, we'd see pressure-assisted dispersal across the entire Mendocino Deep. Current patterns would carry contamination north toward the California coast within 72 hours. He looked up at me with haunted eyes. "Solric, if they're heading for shallow water." I didn't need him to finish. A nuclear convoy moving toward populated coastline during a communications blackout. My sister Marina lived in Eureka, right in the path of those currents. 40,000 people in the immediate contamination zone. NYM, how long until the convoy reaches the continental shelf? At current speed and bearing, 18 hours, sir. 18 hours to figure out what we were dealing with. 18 hours to decide whether to surface immediately, risking decompression damage to the station and crew, or maintain position and try to gather more intelligence. The hull groaned again, deeper this time. Our pressure sensors showed minor fluctuations, nothing immediately dangerous. But deep-sea operations taught you that minor problems became fatal problems with terrifying speed. I caught Tasia staring at her navigation display with an expression I'd never seen before. Not confusion or fear, recognition. Like she was looking at a map she'd seen before. "Tasia, something you want to share with the class?" She startled, fingers immediately working to clear her display screens. "No, sir, just unusual routing patterns for legitimate transport operations." The way she emphasized legitimate made ice form in my chest. Because if this convoy wasn't operating under proper civilian authorization, and it was maintaining military formation protocols while carrying weapons-grade nuclear material, then we were witnessing either foreign aggression or domestic black ops. The synthetic coffee had gone stone cold, but the metallic taste coating my tongue grew stronger with each passing minute. Beyond our pressurized hull, in the absolute darkness of the deep Pacific, 5 nuclear-armed vessels continued their methodical progress toward the continental shelf. 18 hours to make a choice that would determine whether I followed military protocol or personal conscience. 18 hours to decide whether those 23 lives under my command would see another sunrise. Deep in my gut, below the fear, below the training, below everything they'd taught me about command decision-making, I knew that whichever path I chose, some of us weren't coming back from this. The sonar system pinged again, that electronic heartbeat that had become the soundtrack to our approaching doom. The convoy had grown to 7 vessels by 05:23 hours, and Station Nereid was dying around us. NYM, run spectral analysis on the new contacts. I gripped the edge of my command console as another power fluctuation sent cascading warnings across our environmental systems. The metallic taste in my mouth had evolved into something sharper, ozone and copper pennies, the signature of electrical systems cooking themselves to death. "I need to know what we're tracking." "Working on it, sir." Her voice carried the strained focus of someone fighting against failing equipment. The sonar array kept dropping offline for seconds at a time, forcing her to restart classification protocols manually. New signatures are smaller, but they're maintaining the same isotope profiles as the transport convoy. The hull around us groaned with a different quality now, not the steady complaint of pressure, but something irregular and concerning. Our depth indicators showed we'd dropped another 8 meters, well outside normal station-keeping parameters. Either our ballast systems were compromised, or the ocean floor was shifting beneath our anchor points. "Engineering reports partial flooding in Section C7, announced Chief Petty Officer Valdez through the intercom, his usually steady voice tight with controlled panic. "Hull breach in the secondary equipment bay. We've isolated the compartment, but we're losing power distribution to non-essential systems." Non-essential. In deep-sea operations, that was a relative term that could become absolutely critical without warning. I activated my damage control tablet, watching red indicators bloom across our station schematic like spreading infection. Corin, radiation monitoring on those new contacts. I turned to find him hunched over his equipment, face illuminated by the sickly green glow of his detection screens. "Are we looking at escort vessels or additional transports?" "That's the problem, Commander." He rubbed his bloodshot eyes, leaving smears of exhaustion across his weathered features. "The radiation signatures don't match any transport configuration in my database. These smaller vessels are showing concentrated isotope readings consistent with..." He paused, rechecking his instruments. "Delivery systems." My blood went arctic. Transport vessels carried nuclear material for processing or disposal. Delivery systems carried nuclear weapons for deployment. "Tasia, I need those movement vectors updated. Where is this convoy ultimately heading?" I moved to her navigation station, noting how she flinched when I approached. Her screens showed detailed bathymetric charts of the continental shelf, with the convoy's projected path marked in pulsing red lines. "Sir, the trajectory analysis is problematic." She highlighted a section of her display with trembling fingers. "Based on current course and speed, they'll reach the Mendocino fracture zone in 14 hours. That's optimal positioning for..." The station's main lighting system failed completely. Emergency illumination kicked in 3 seconds later, bathing our control room in hellish red light that made everyone look like casualties. The constant electrical hum that defined life aboard Nereid dropped to a whisper, replaced by the amplified sound of our own breathing and the increasingly frequent hull stress groans. "For what, Tasia?" My command voice cut through the sudden technological silence. "Optimal positioning for what?" She met my eyes in the emergency lighting, and I saw something there that made my chest tighten with dread. Not fear, guilt. "Acoustic deployment, sir. The fracture zone provides natural sound channels that can carry low-frequency transmissions across the entire Pacific Basin." I stared at her, pieces of a horrible puzzle clicking into place. "You've seen this before." "Commander, She looked away, fingers working nervously over her navigation controls. "I was part of the research team that mapped those acoustic channels 3 years ago. Defense Advanced Research Projects, Deep Sea Communications Initiative." "DARPA. Of course. What were you researching, specialist?" "Submarine-launched ballistic missile coordination protocols." The words fell from her lips like lead weights dropping into deep water. "Multi-platform launch sequences that could use natural ocean acoustics to synchronize nuclear deployment across multiple targets." The emergency lighting flickered, and in that moment of near darkness, I felt the weight of 3 kilometers of black water pressing down on us like the judgment of God. 7 nuclear vessels moving in coordinated formation toward the optimal position for synchronized missile launch, while our deep-sea monitoring station suffered catastrophic system failures that prevented us from warning anyone. "NYM, what's our current communication status?" I already knew the answer, but command protocol demanded I ask. "Primary array is completely offline, sir. Emergency backup shows severe signal degradation. We might get through to surface operations, but any transmission would be fragmented and unreliable." She paused her diagnostic routine, looking at me with eyes that had aged years in the past few hours. "At this depth, with current atmospheric conditions, we're looking at maybe 30% probability of successful message transmission." 30%. Against 7 nuclear-armed vessels potentially preparing for coordinated missile launch. The mathematics of survival had never been so brutally clear. Corrin's radiation detector began clicking with increasing frequency. Not immediate danger, but a steady reminder that we were sharing deep ocean space with enough radioactive material to sterilize the entire Pacific coastline. "Commander, I'm detecting trace isotopes in our water circulation system. Whatever containment protocols those vessels are using, they're not perfect." The taste of metal and ozone intensified, joined now by something acrid and chemical, the signature of hull sealant under stress. Section C7's flooding was spreading, despite Valdez's containment efforts. We were slowly drowning from the inside, while external pressure tried to crush us from without. "Sir, the convoy is changing formation." NYM's voice carried a new urgency as she pointed at her tactical display. "They're spreading out into deployment spacing. Whatever they're planning to do, they're getting ready to do it." I moved to the primary tactical screen, watching those 7 green dots arrange themselves across our sector grid in a pattern I recognized from classified naval warfare briefs. Optimal spacing for coordinated launch sequence, designed to overwhelm missile defense systems through synchronized timing and trajectory variation. The hull groaned again, longer and deeper than before. Our pressure sensors showed critical fluctuations in multiple hull sections. Station Nereid had been designed for long-term deep-sea operations, but not for the kind of structural stress we were experiencing. Something was systematically weakening our hull integrity. "Chief Valdez, engineering assessment. How long until we lose structural viability?" "At current rate of degradation, maybe 6 hours, Commander. But if we lose primary power, the ballast systems won't maintain station-keeping altitude. We'll sink beyond crush depth before hull failure becomes relevant." 6 hours. The convoy would reach deployment position in 14 hours, but we'd be dead in 6. Unless we surfaced immediately, abandoning our monitoring post and losing all surveillance capability on what might be the opening move of nuclear warfare. I looked around our failing control room at 3 people whose lives depended on my next decision. NYM bent over her sonar console, trying to maintain tracking on targets that might disappear if we lost position. Corin, monitoring radiation levels that were slowly climbing as our hull integrity weakened and external contamination seeped inside. Tasia, staring at navigation charts that showed her exactly where 7 nuclear weapons were heading. And somewhere above us, 3 kilometers of crushing black water separated us from a surface world that had no idea what was moving through the deep Pacific darkness below. NYM, can you maintain target tracking if we begin emergency ascent procedures? Negative, sir. Sonar array effectiveness drops exponentially as we rise. Above 2,000 meters depth, we'd lose all contact with the convoy. So our choice was simple: surface immediately and save ourselves while losing all ability to track the nuclear threat, or maintain position and gather intelligence while our station died around us. The emergency lighting flickered again, and in that moment of near darkness, I made the decision that would define the rest of our lives, however long that might be. All stations prepare for extended deep water operations. We maintain position and surveillance until we have definitive intelligence on convoy intentions. I keyed the intercom to address the entire station crew. This is the commander. We are tracking a potential nuclear threat to the continental United States. Station integrity is compromised, but mission requirements demand we maintain surveillance capabilities. All non-essential personnel report to emergency stations. The responses came back as a chorus of acknowledgments, 23 voices accepting the possibility of death in service of a mission that might prevent nuclear catastrophe. Through the hull, transmitted through water and titanium and failing electronics, I could hear something that might have been the distant thrumming of nuclear-powered engines, moving with deadly purpose through the endless dark. The 8th vessel appeared on our displays at 0847 hours, just as Station Nereid's primary hull breach alarm began its death shriek. Commander, new contact bearing 270, range 8 kilometers. NYM's voice cut through the mechanical screaming until I could silence the klaxon. Different profile from the convoy escorts. This one's a submarine, nuclear ballistic missile class. I moved to her sonar station, boots splashing through ankle-deep water that had been seeping through our supposedly sealed bulkheads for the past hour. The metallic taste in my mouth had evolved into something that burned, not just ozone now, but the acrid bite of hull sealant breaking down under impossible pressure. 3 kilometers of ocean were slowly winning their war against human engineering. Define larger, specialist. Her fingers worked over controls that sparked and flickered, fighting to maintain contact with our failing sonar array. Displacement approximately 12,000 tons. Reactor signature matches ballistic missile submarine configuration, but the radiation profile. She paused, rechecking readings that made her face pale in the emergency lighting. Sir, this vessel is leaking massive amounts of reactor coolant. Either catastrophic damage or deliberate modification. Nuclear ballistic missile submarine. My blood turned to ice water. Corin confirmed that classification. I moved to the radiation specialist station, where he hunched over detection screens that flickered between readings. The water seeping around our feet carried a faint greenish luminescence, trace radioactivity becoming visible as contamination levels rose. Confirmed ballistic missile submarine, but heavily modified. He manipulated his detection algorithms, frowning at results that violated normal operational parameters. Commander, this reactor has been deliberately altered for maximum radioactive dispersal. We're looking at a submarine configured as a massive dirty bomb, enough contaminated coolant to irradiate the entire Pacific coastal region. The hull around us groaned, not the steady complaint of pressure anymore, but rhythmic stress patterns that shouldn't exist in natural deep-sea conditions. Our depth indicators showed another 12-meter drop, despite emergency ballast protocols. Or what, Corin? Or someone modified their reactor systems for maximum radioactive output. Dirty bomb enhancement. He looked up from his screens with eyes that had seen too much. Commander, a submarine reactor configured for maximum contamination dispersal could irradiate the entire continental shelf. Everything from San Francisco to Seattle would be uninhabitable for decades. The emergency lighting failed completely. In absolute darkness, I heard Tasia's sharp intake of breath, followed by the click of her emergency flashlight. The beam revealed her face, frozen with an expression I'd seen before, on the faces of people who just realized they were about to die. Tasia. My command voice carried absolute authority. even whispered in darkness. "You know something about this operation?" The backup lighting system engaged with stuttering red illumination. Tasia's hands shook as she adjusted her flashlight beam over navigation charts covered with her own calculations, coordinates and timing sequences she'd been updating since the convoy first appeared. "Sir, I need to tell you something about my previous research." Her voice carried the weight of confession. 3 years ago, I was part of DARPA's Deep Strike initiative. We developed acoustic coordination protocols for multi-platform nuclear operations. You mentioned Deep Strike before. What aren't you telling me? The project was canceled due to arms treaty violations, but the research data, acoustic mapping, coordination algorithms, targeting protocols, all of it was classified under special access programs. She gestured at her displays with trembling hands. "Commander, everything happening right now follows our operational framework exactly. Someone is executing my research." I stared at her in the hellish red light, watching someone's past sins catch up with them 3 kilometers underwater, while our station died around us. "Who has access to that research data?" 14 personnel had complete access to Deep Strike protocols, 12 Americans in military and intelligence positions, 2 foreign technical consultants, Dr. Chun Yifeng from Beijing's Institute of Oceanographic Warfare, and Captain Dmitry Volkov from Russian Northern Fleet Strategic Command. "Which foreign nationals?" She met my eyes in the emergency lighting, and I saw the weight of nuclear catastrophe settling on her conscience. "Dr. Chun Yifeng from Beijing's Institute of Oceanographic Warfare, and Captain Dmitry Volkov from Russian Northern Fleet Strategic Command." The hull breach alarm began screaming again. Not the primary breach this time, but secondary and tertiary failures cascading through our pressure barriers. I silenced the klaxon, but the underlying damage continued its relentless work. We were slowly being crushed to death while tracking what might be the opening move of nuclear warfare. "NYM, current position and heading for all contacts." 8 vessels total, sir. 7 convoy escorts plus the ballistic missile submarine. Bearing 045, speed 12 knots, approaching the Mendocino fracture zone. She fought with failing controls to maintain target resolution. At current speed, they'll reach acoustic deployment position in approximately 6 hours. 6 hours. I checked our damage control systems, watching our station die in real time. Primary power at 55% and dropping. Hull integrity compromised in 9 sections. Life support cycling through emergency protocols. Communication array showing complete failure across all frequencies. Chief Valdez, engineering assessment. I keyed the intercom with hands that left bloody fingerprints on the controls. When had I started bleeding? How long can we maintain position? Commander, flooding in 6 compartments. Ballast systems are failing. We're losing depth control. His voice carried the controlled panic of someone fighting losing battles on multiple fronts. Maybe 3 hours until we either surface involuntarily or sink beyond hull-crushed depth. 3 hours to maintain surveillance on a nuclear threat reaching deployment position in 6 hours. The mathematics of catastrophe had crystallized into impossible precision. Corin, radiation exposure assessment for crew. Current radiation levels manageable, but climbing exponentially. Contaminated seawater is carrying isotopes throughout our circulation systems. He consulted readings that painted our future in sickly green numbers. At current exposure rates, acute radiation syndrome within 8 hours. Lethal doses within 18 hours. I looked around our failing control room at 3 people whose lives I was responsible for, watching them process the fact that we were already dead. The only question was whether we'd die from drowning, crushing, or radiation poisoning first. "Sir, the convoy formation is changing again." NYM's voice carried new urgency as she watched her tactical display. "They're arranging for synchronized launch sequence, textbook nuclear strike coordination." I moved to her tactical display, watching those 7 green dots arrange themselves in a pattern that triggered recognition from classified briefings I'd hoped never to use. Optimal spacing for coordinated nuclear strike, designed to overwhelm missile defense systems through precise timing and trajectory variation. Time to synchronized launch position? Based on current maneuvering, 6 hours, sir. 4 hours until nuclear launch. 3 hours until station failure. And somewhere above us, 3 kilometers of crushing black water separated us from a surface world unaware of what moved through the Pacific darkness below. The emergency lighting flickered, and in that strobing darkness, I heard something that made my blood freeze, active sonar pinging. Not from our failing systems, but from the convoy itself. They were scanning, searching for something in our immediate vicinity. NYM, are we being painted by hostile sonar? She worked frantically over her detection systems, fighting cascading equipment failures. Negative direct targeting, sir. But they're definitely conducting active search patterns. Whatever they're hunting, it's close to our position. Tasia's navigation display suddenly flared with coordinate updates she hadn't requested. Commander, our positioning system is receiving external data feeds. Someone is updating our location remotely, and only classified military networks have override capability for our navigation systems. I moved to her station, watching our coordinates shift without any input from our crew. Our exact position was being tracked and updated from an external source. They know precisely where we are. The hull groaned again, not random pressure stress, but rhythmic pulses that felt deliberate, engineered. I realized our structural failures might not be accidents. Tasia, your deep strike research, did it include protocols for eliminating monitoring stations? Her face drained of all color in the emergency lighting. Acoustic resonance weapons, sir. Submarine deployable systems using low-frequency sound waves to induce catastrophic structural failure in underwater installations. Effective range up to 50 kilometers. Our hull failures, could they be caused by acoustic weapons? Yes, sir. She looked around our dying station with the expression of someone watching their own research kill them. If they're using acoustic attack protocols, our hull breaches aren't pressure damage. Someone is systematically destroying our surveillance capability. I stared at the tactical display showing 8 nuclear contacts moving with lethal precision toward launch position, while our monitoring station suffered exactly the kind of systematic destruction that Tasia's own research had designed to eliminate observer threats. The emergency lighting flickered again, and in that strobing red darkness, I made the decision that would define whatever time remained to us. Not whether to surface or maintain position, but whether to die as helpless witnesses or fight back against our own research being used for nuclear warfare. All stations, this is the commander. We are tracking hostile nuclear forces deploying for coordinated strike against the continental United States. Station integrity is compromised by enemy action. Mission completion takes priority over survival. Prepare for combat emergency protocols. Through the failing hull, transmitted through water and titanium and dying electronics, I could hear the distant thrumming of nuclear-powered engines moving with murderous purpose through the endless dark, and the subtle, rhythmic pulsing of acoustic weapons methodically crushing us to death with the sound of our own research turned against us. The hull breach alarm died mid-shriek at 0923 hours, not because I silenced it, but because the primary power grid finally surrendered to 3 kilometers of crushing water. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red, and in that strobing darkness, our sonar displays revealed the nightmare we'd been tracking had just become exponentially worse. Commander, new contact. NYM's voice stayed level despite water now reaching our knees. Bearing 085, range 12 kilometers. Displacement. Jesus Christ, sir, this contact is massive. I splashed through contaminated seawater to her failing console, where sparking electronics fought to maintain target resolution. The metallic taste had evolved beyond ozone and hull sealant into something that burned my throat, trace radioactivity becoming concentrated as station Nereids slowly flooded with irradiated seawater. Define massive, specialist. Her fingers worked over controls that flickered between function and failure. Sir, this contact displaces approximately 45,000 tons. Nuclear signature indicates multiple reactor cores. This isn't a submarine, it's a ballistic missile platform. Underwater launch capacity for at least 24 ICBMs. 24 intercontinental ballistic missiles. My mouth went dry as tactical implications crystallized into nuclear holocaust mathematics. 8 escort vessels, 1 modified ballistic submarine, and now an underwater launch platform capable of overwhelming any missile defense system through sheer volume. Corin, confirm that classification. The radiation specialist hunched over detection equipment that sparked and died, fought back to life, then died again. Confirmed multiple reactor signatures, but Commander. He looked up with eyes that had seen too much death approaching. This platform isn't just carrying missiles. The radiation signature shows weapons-grade plutonium in quantities sufficient for enhanced radiation warheads, neutron bombs designed for maximum casualty effects. Enhanced radiation warheads. Neutron bombs that would kill millions while leaving infrastructure intact. The hull around us groaned with rhythmic stress patterns that no longer seemed random. Sir. NYM's voice carried new urgency as her tactical display updated with information we didn't want to know. All contacts are maneuvering into coordinated strike formation. They're arranging for synchronized launch sequence, maximum target coverage with missile defense saturation. I moved to her display, watching those 9 green contacts arrange themselves in a pattern I recognized from classified strategic warfare briefings. Perfect spacing for coordinated nuclear strike, designed to overwhelm missile defense through precise timing and trajectory variation. The kind of formation that ended civilizations. Time to synchronized launch position? Based on current maneuvering patterns, 4 hours, sir. 4 hours until nuclear war began. I checked our damage control displays, watching station Nereid die in real time. Primary power at 38% and dropping. Hull integrity compromised in 14 sections. Life support systems cycling through final emergency protocols. Chief Valdez, engineering assessment. Commander, catastrophic flooding in 9 compartments. Ballast systems completely failed. We're losing depth control fast. His voice carried controlled panic, fighting losing battles on multiple fronts. Maybe 90 minutes until we either emergency surface or sink past hull crush depth. 90 minutes to maintain surveillance on nuclear forces reaching launch position in 4 hours. The mathematics of catastrophe allowed no solution. Corin, crew radiation exposure assessment. Current levels approaching acute radiation syndrome threshold. Contaminated flooding is carrying concentrated isotopes throughout our life support systems. He consulted readings that painted our immediate future in lethal green numbers. Sir, at current exposure rates, we'll experience severe radiation sickness within 6 hours. Fatal doses within 12 hours. I looked around our failing command center at 3 people whose lives were my responsibility, watching them process the reality that we were already dying, drowning in irradiated seawater while tracking the opening moves of nuclear warfare. The emergency lighting died completely. In absolute darkness, I heard Tasia's sharp intake of breath, followed by the mechanical click of her emergency flashlight. The beam revealed water cascading through hull breaches that had opened while we focused on external threats. Sir, there's something else. Tasia's voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. My deep strike research included protocols for eliminating surveillance assets. The acoustic resonance data, low-frequency sound transmission for inducing structural failures in underwater installations. Explain. Our hull breaches aren't random pressure damage, Commander. Someone is using acoustic weapons to systematically destroy our monitoring capability. They know exactly where we are, and they're methodically killing our station to eliminate witness capability. I stared at her in the emergency lighting, watching someone's past research become their death sentence 3 kilometers underwater. Your research is being used against us? Every structural failure pattern matches acoustic attack protocols from deep strike files. They're using my own research to crush us to death. Her voice broke with the weight of scientific responsibility becoming personal horror. Commander, if they have complete deep strike data, they know about our emergency communication protocols too. They'll be jamming our transmission attempts. The hull breach alarm tried to sound again, failed, then managed a weak electronic whimper before dying permanently. But the damage continued, water pressure doing its relentless work against titanium barriers never designed for sustained acoustic attack. NYM, are our communications being actively jammed? She fought with detection equipment that sparked and failed, showing readings that confirmed our worst fears. All frequencies showing directed interference, sir. Someone is using military-grade electronic warfare systems to maintain communications blackout. Pattern suggests Russian Northern Fleet capabilities. Russian Northern Fleet. The foreign national from Tasia's deep strike research with complete access to acoustic warfare protocols. I began understanding how thoroughly we'd been outmaneuvered. Sir, proximity alert. NYM's voice carried new terror as her displays updated with contacts moving closer. Multiple vessels conducting active search patterns in our immediate area. They're hunting for something or someone at our exact coordinates. I moved to her tactical display, watching those nuclear contacts adjust course towards Station Nereid's position. Not random search patterns, but deliberate convergence on our surveillance platform. They're coming for us specifically. The hull groaned with rhythmic pulses that felt engineered, deliberate. Our structural failures had been precisely calculated to eliminate our monitoring capability without triggering immediate evacuation protocols. Someone wanted us alive long enough to witness nuclear deployment, then die before reporting what we'd seen. Tasia, your deep strike research, did it include timeline protocols for eliminating surveillance during nuclear operations? Her face drained of color in the emergency lighting. Acoustic attack time to maintain observer capability until deployment completion, then catastrophic structural failure to prevent testimony. She looked around our dying station with the expression of watching her own research kill her. They're following my operational framework exactly. Perfect timing to let us watch nuclear war begin, then die before warning anyone. I stared at tactical displays showing 9 nuclear contacts approaching coordinated strike position, while Station Nereid suffered systematic destruction, designed by our own research. The emergency lighting failed again. In strobing darkness, I heard something that made my blood freeze. Active sonar pinging from multiple sources, converging on our position with military precision. All contacts painting us with active sonar, sir. NYM's voice fought through equipment failures. They're targeting our exact position for Commander, multiple torpedo launch signatures. Incoming weapons bearing various, range decreasing rapidly. Torpedoes. They weren't content to crush us slowly with acoustic weapons. Nuclear war would begin in 4 hours, and they were eliminating the only witnesses right now. Impact time. Multiple weapons, sir. First impact in approximately 8 minutes. 8 minutes until death by torpedo. 90 minutes until death by structural failure. 4 hours until nuclear holocaust began. I looked at my crew, 3 people whose trust I'd earned, and whose lives I was about to spend fighting the mathematically impossible. All stations, this is the commander. I keyed internal communications with hands that left bloody fingerprints on failing controls. We are tracking hostile nuclear forces deploying for coordinated strike against the continental United States. Station integrity is compromised by enemy action using our own research. We have 8 minutes before torpedo impact, 4 hours before nuclear launch. Through the hull, transmitted through water and dying electronics, I could hear the distant thrumming of nuclear engines moving with lethal precision through endless dark, and the high-pitched whine of multiple torpedo guidance systems homing on our acoustic signature. Sir, what are your orders? NYM asked quietly. I stared at displays showing certain death approaching from multiple directions while nuclear war prepared to begin above us. 3 kilometers of black water separated us from a surface world unaware of what moved through Pacific darkness below. 8 minutes to live. 4 hours until civilization ended. And somewhere in our failing systems, perhaps one chance to send warning before torpedoes turned Station Nereid into a radioactive grave. Prepare emergency transmission burst. Everything we know about nuclear contacts, launch positions, timing protocols. I moved to communication systems that flickered between life and death. We have 8 minutes to tell the surface world that nuclear war begins in 4 hours. The torpedo guidance signals grew louder. The torpedo guidance signals cut through crushing darkness like mechanical death songs, each ping bringing annihilation closer to Station Nereid's compromised hull. 7 minutes until impact. I fought through knee-deep contaminated flooding toward our failing emergency communication array, the metallic taste of radiation now burning my throat with each breath. Tasia, I need everything about emergency transmission protocols. My voice cracked as I grabbed her shoulder. She hunched over detection equipment, showing torpedo trajectories, converging with mathematical precision on our position. Your deep strike research, what gaps exist in their communication blackout? Her hands shook as she pulled up files from memory, reciting specifications that had become our death warrant. Emergency burst transmission on ultra-low frequency, compressed data packet, transmission window during torpedo active sonar intervals when jamming systems cycle to prevent interference with guidance. How long is that window? 47 seconds every 2 minutes. Next window in. She checked her failing chronometer. 93 seconds, sir. 93 seconds to prepare a transmission that might warn the surface world before nuclear war began. I looked at our crew, 3 people processing the reality that we were already dead, choosing how to spend final minutes between drowning, radiation poisoning, and high-explosive torpedo warheads. NYM, what's our transmission range on emergency power? She fought with communication systems that died and resurrected with each power fluctuation. Maybe 12 kilometers, sir. Not enough to reach surface relay stations directly, but there's a deep-sea navigation buoy at 11.4 kilometers. If it's still operational, If the navigation buoy survived, whatever had killed our primary communications. If its relay systems hadn't been systematically disabled. If 12 kilometers of seawater wouldn't absorb our transmission before reaching automated systems designed to forward emergency signals to surface fleets. Too many ifs. But possibilities were all we had left. Corin radiation exposure assessment for EVA operations? The specialist looked up from detection equipment showing numbers that guaranteed death. Commander, external radiation levels are now fatal within minutes. Anyone going outside will experience massive cellular damage before completing any meaningful work. Around us, Station Nereid's hull produced rhythmic stress groans, each pulse precisely timed, engineered by acoustic weapons that used my subordinate's own research to methodically crush our surveillance platform, while nuclear forces moved toward coordinated launch positions. Sir, torpedo guidance signals are converging. NYM's voice carried controlled terror as her displays updated with weapons approaching from 3 different vectors. Multiple warheads using different attack profiles, thermal homing, acoustic guidance, and magnetic anomaly detection. Someone wants to ensure complete destruction. Complete destruction to eliminate witnesses before nuclear war began. I checked tactical displays showing 9 hostile contacts arranged in coordinated strike formation, 4 hours from synchronized launch sequence designed to overwhelm missile defense systems through sheer volume. The emergency lighting failed completely, leaving us in absolute darkness except for failing equipment displays and Tasia's emergency flashlight. In that strobing hell, I made the decision that would define how we died. Tasia, you're going to repair the transmission array. She turned toward me with eyes that reflected emergency lighting like a trapped animal. Sir, external radiation will kill me within minutes. Yes, but you know the deep strike communication protocols better than anyone. You built the systems they're using to jam us. I moved closer, speaking quietly while torpedo guidance signals grew louder through the hull. If anyone can find the transmission window they missed, it's you. Her breath fogged in air growing cold as life support systems failed. Around us, Station Nereid groaned with rhythmic pulses that felt like a dying heartbeat. Acoustic weapons using her own research to crush us methodically, while nuclear forces reached launch positions. Sir, can't, the radiation will. Her breathing fogged in air growing colder as life support died around us. If I go outside, cellular breakdown within minutes. Won't make it back, Commander. I moved closer, water sloshing against my legs, speaking quietly while death approached from 3 vectors simultaneously. Those 9 contacts up there carry enough neutron warheads to kill 60 million people in coordinated strikes. We die here in 6 minutes either way. She stared at me through emergency lighting casting hellish red shadows, processing mathematics where every calculation ended in death. Her hands shook as she reached for EVA equipment designed for routine maintenance, not weapons-grade radiation exposure. What if it doesn't work? What if I die and the transmission never? Then 60 million people die anyway, but we'll have tried. I grabbed radiation detection gear that would monitor her cellular breakdown in real time. Tasia, this is the only chance. The hull breach alarm tried to sound one final time, managed a weak electronic moan, then died permanently. But water kept cascading through openings that widened with each structural stress pulse, each torpedo sonar ping bringing death closer through 3 kilometers of crushing darkness. Sir, I'm reading active targeting from multiple weapons systems. NYM fought with detection equipment showing torpedo guidance signatures painting our hull with lethal precision. They're using our acoustic signature for terminal guidance. No matter what evasive action we take, those torpedoes will find us. No evasive action possible. Station Nereid was dying too fast for maneuverability, and 3-kilometer depth prevented emergency surfacing. We were trapped at crushed depth while nuclear submarines prepared to launch intercontinental ballistic missiles equipped with neutron warheads designed for maximum civilian casualties. Tasia. I grabbed her equipment pack, checking radiation detection gear that would monitor her death in real time. EVA suit integrity? She tested seals on equipment designed for deep-sea operations, not exposure to weapons-grade radiation. Suit will provide maybe 8 minutes protection against current radiation levels. After that, she looked at readings showing radioactivity concentrated by flooding seawater. Catastrophic cellular damage leading to complete system failure. 8 minutes to repair transmission array, encode emergency warning, and send coordinated nuclear strike data to surface forces. 8 minutes before radiation poisoning guaranteed death, even if torpedo impact somehow missed our position. What about the rest of us? Corin's voice carried quiet acceptance as he monitored equipment showing Station Nereid's final moments. If Tasia succeeds, we still have incoming torpedoes and structural failure. I checked damage control displays showing catastrophic flooding in 12 compartments, life support systems cycling through emergency protocols designed to maintain crew viability for exactly 97 more minutes. We maintain surveillance until torpedo impact. Document everything: nuclear contacts, launch positions, timing protocols. If Tasia's transmission fails, maybe emergency pods will reach the surface with warning data. Maybe. If emergency pods survive torpedo explosions designed to eliminate all witnesses. If radiation levels didn't kill us before reaching surface evacuation protocols. If surface forces believe data recovered from pods launched by personnel already dead from radiation exposure. Too many maybes. But possibilities were all we had. Sir, 40 seconds to transmission window. NYM coordinated equipment that died and resurrected with each power fluctuation. Emergency communication array shows partial functionality, but external array alignment requires manual adjustment. Manual adjustment requiring EVA operations in lethal radiation. Tasia moved toward equipment lockers containing gear that would protect her for exactly 8 minutes before cellular damage made continued existence impossible. Commander, what if? She stopped, looking around Station Nereid's failing systems with expression of someone facing mathematical certainty of death. What if I can't repair the array? What if the radiation kills me before completing transmission setup? I stared at her through emergency lighting that cast everything in hellish red, listening to torpedo guidance signals converging on our position, while nuclear forces moved toward launch positions 4 hours away. Around us, Station Nereid died with rhythmic groans that sounded like mechanical breathing, each structural stress pulse bringing complete failure closer. Then we die having tried everything possible to warn the surface world about nuclear war. I moved to communication controls that sparked with each touch, leaving bloody fingerprints on systems fighting losing battles against crushing water. Tasia, those 9 nuclear contacts up there are carrying enough firepower to end civilization. If we don't send warning, millions of people die without ever knowing what hit them. She nodded slowly, processing responsibility that extended beyond Station Nereid's failing hull to cities full of people unaware of nuclear forces moving through Pacific darkness below. Her equipment pack contained radiation detection gear that would monitor her death minute by minute, temperature sensors that would record cellular breakdown in real time. Sir, 20 seconds to transmission window. NYM's voice fought through equipment failures as detection systems updated with torpedo positions closing on terminal guidance parameters. Multiple weapons now painting us with constant active sonar. Impact in approximately 5 minutes. 5 minutes until torpedo impact. 8 minutes protection from EVA suit against lethal radiation. 4 hours until synchronized nuclear launch destroyed everything above us. Tasia sealed her EVA helmet with hands that shook despite controlled breathing, checking life support systems designed for routine maintenance operations, not exposure to weapons-grade radioactivity concentrated by 3 kilometers of contaminated seawater. Commander, if I don't make it back. She looked around Station Nereid's flooding command center at equipment that would die with us in 5 minutes. Tell them the deep strike research was supposed to protect people, not kill them. I will. She moved toward the airlock, carrying equipment that might save millions of lives above us or might fail completely, leaving her dead from radiation exposure, while nuclear war began exactly as planned. Through the hull, transmitted through water and failing electronics, I could hear nuclear engines thrumming with lethal precision and torpedo guidance systems homing on our acoustic signature with mechanical certainty. The airlock cycled with grinding sounds that spoke of systems pushed beyond design limits. Through internal cameras, I watched Tasia's EVA suit disappear into crushing darkness where radiation would kill her within minutes, carrying tools to repair communication arrays using protocols designed to defeat her own countermeasures. Sir, transmission window opens in 10 seconds. NYM coordinated systems that flickered between function and death. If she succeeds, we'll have 47 seconds to transmit everything we know about coordinated nuclear strike. I stared at displays showing torpedo guidance signals converging while radiation specialist Corin documented exposure levels that guaranteed death for anyone outside Station Nereid's failing protection. Around us, Contaminated flooding carried isotopes through life support systems designed to maintain crew viability for exactly 93 more minutes. Tasia status report. Static answered from EVA communication systems damaged by electromagnetic interference, acoustic weapons, and radiation exposure concentrated in equipment designed for routine operations. Through external cameras showing only darkness, I watched temperature indicators fluctuate as her suit fought losing battles against radioactivity that would cause complete cellular failure within minutes. The torpedo guidance signals grew louder, transmitted through 3 kilometers of water with mechanical precision that promised annihilation. Somewhere above us, nuclear submarines prepared to launch intercontinental ballistic missiles, while Station Nereid died systematically, methodically, using research designed to protect underwater installations. "Sir, external communication array shows, wait." NYM's voice carried sudden hope fighting through controlled terror. "I'm reading system activation." She's accessing the transmission controls. Through static-filled communication channels, I heard Tasia's voice fighting radiation sickness that was already beginning cellular breakdown. "Commander, array partially operational. Radiation levels causing equipment. Can maybe get one transmission. One transmission to warn the surface world about nuclear war beginning in 4 hours." I looked at data compiled during our surveillance mission. 9 nuclear contacts arranged in coordinated strike formation. Tactical positions calculated for maximum missile defense overwhelm. Synchronized launch protocols designed to ensure civilization-ending casualties. "Tasia, transmit everything. Nuclear contact positions, launch timing, neutron warhead configurations. Everything we documented." Static answered as radiation poisoning interfered with communication equipment designed for routine EVA operations. Through external sensors, I monitored temperature spikes indicating cellular damage, accelerating beyond critical thresholds, while torpedo guidance signals painted our hull with targeting precision that promised complete destruction. The transmission window opened with electronic precision, designed to exploit gaps in enemy jamming protocols. 47 seconds to send coordinated nuclear strike data to surface forces, transmitted through 12 kilometers of contaminated seawater to navigation buoy systems that might relay emergency warnings to fleets unaware of nuclear war approaching from Pacific darkness. "Beginning transmission now." Her voice fought through static that spoke of equipment failing as radiation destroyed electronic systems. "Nuclear contacts, 9 vessels, coordinated strike formation, synchronized launch in 4 hours." The data burst began with compressed information packets containing everything we documented about underwater nuclear deployment. Through hull sensors, I felt torpedo guidance signals growing stronger as multiple weapons approached terminal guidance phase, their warheads designed to eliminate witnesses before nuclear war could begin. Around us, Station Nereid's hull groaned with stress patterns that had become familiar. Acoustic weapons using Tasia's own research to crush us systematically, while she died from radiation poisoning, fighting to repair communication systems with hands that would never function again after tonight. 47 seconds to save the world. 5 minutes until torpedoes ended our surveillance mission permanently. For hours until nuclear holocaust began above us, if surface forces failed to respond to warnings transmitted by personnel already dead from radiation exposure. I watched temperature readings spike as Tasia's life support systems registered cellular breakdown, accelerating beyond sustainable thresholds, knowing that somewhere in crushing darkness 12 kilometers away, a navigation buoy might be receiving emergency data that could prevent millions of deaths. The torpedo guidance signals reached maximum intensity, transmitted through water with mechanical precision that spoke of weapons homing on target with mathematical certainty. In failing emergency lighting, I saw NYM and Corin processing the reality that we would die within minutes, having spent our lives attempting to warn a surface world unaware of nuclear forces moving through Pacific darkness below. Transmission complete. Tasia's voice fought through static generated by radiation, destroying her communication equipment. Warning sent to surface relay, coordinates transmitted, cannot. Her communication channel died with electronic finality that spoke of equipment failure beyond repair. Through external sensors, I monitored temperature indicators showing cellular damage reaching levels incompatible with continued existence, while torpedo guidance signals painted Station Nereid's hull with targeting precision, designed to ensure no witnesses survived. For minutes until torpedo impact, the emergency transmission might reach surface forces, or might die in electromagnetic interference generated by nuclear submarines maintaining communication blackout. We would never know which. Around us, contaminated flooding continued its relentless work, while Station Nereid died with mechanical groans that sounded like breathing. In failing displays, I watched nuclear contacts moving towards synchronized launch positions that would end civilization in exactly 4 hours, if our warning failed to reach the surface world in time. The torpedo guidance signals reached terminal phase intensity, transmitted through crushing darkness with sounds that promised annihilation arriving within minutes. The torpedo guidance signals stopped, not gradually, not fading as weapons passed overhead or lost tracking. They stopped with the abrupt electronic silence of systems switching off mid-cycle, leaving Station Nereid wrapped in crushing darkness where only our failing equipment provided sound. The sudden quiet felt more terrifying than incoming death. What the hell? NYM fought with detection systems showing empty screens where 9 nuclear contacts should be maintaining launch positions. Sir, I'm reading nothing. All hostile signatures gone. I stared at displays that had shown coordinated nuclear strike formation for hours, now showing only static and electromagnetic interference patterns. Through external cameras registering total darkness, temperature sensors indicated water returning to normal levels. No more radiation contamination. No more acoustic weapons systematically crushing our hull. Corin radiation levels? The specialist checked instruments that had been screaming fatal exposure warnings for the past hour. Commander, readings are inconsistent. Some sensors show background normal, others still registering weapons-grade contamination. Equipment failure or... He looked up with confusion cutting through exhaustion. Or something's wrong with our detection systems. Something wrong. I checked chronometers showing time elapsed since beginning our surveillance mission. 14 hours of documenting nuclear deployment that had vanished like digital ghosts. Around us, Station Nereid's hull still groaned with structural stress, but pressure readings showed stable depth maintenance instead of crushing descent toward implosion. Tasia status report. Static answered from EVA communication channels. Through external cameras, I could see her suit beacon flickering weakly 12 meters from the station, but temperature readings fluctuated between normal EVA parameters and fatal radiation exposure, depending on which sensors I consulted. Sir, I'm picking up surface communication. NYM coordinated equipment that had been dead for hours, now functioning with intermittent clarity. Fleet Admiral Morrison requesting station status report. Standard check-in protocol, no emergency indicators. Standard protocol. No mention of nuclear threats. No response to emergency transmission warnings about coordinated strike formation. I looked at data logs showing our surveillance documentation. Timestamps consistent, sensor readings detailed, tactical analysis complete. But Surface Command operated as if none of it had happened. NYM, replay transmission log from Tasia's emergency burst. She accessed communication records with hands that shook despite controlled breathing. Sir, I'm showing, transmission attempted, but no confirmed receipt. The navigation buoy relay. She checked system status indicators flickering between operational and failed. Uncertain status, sir. Uncertain status. I stared at displays showing Station Nereid maintaining standard depth and position, life support systems functioning within normal parameters, hull integrity showing stress fatigue, but no critical breaches. The flooding that had cascaded through 12 compartments showed on some sensors, but not others, as if our failing systems couldn't determine which reality was accurate. Commander, external EVA recovery? Corin monitored life support indicators, showing normal atmospheric composition throughout the station. If radiation levels are actually safe. I looked at Tasia's suit beacon flickering in darkness beyond our camera's effective range, knowing she had volunteered for EVA operations that would kill her within minutes, if our radiation readings were accurate. If they weren't, she might be waiting for recovery, while we processed imaginary threats and phantom nuclear contacts. Begin EVA recovery operations. Full radiation protocol until we confirm exposure levels. Moving toward airlock controls that had cycled Tasia into lethal darkness, I noticed my hands weren't shaking. After 14 hours documenting nuclear deployment and incoming torpedo attack, my stress responses had vanished as if the physiological reactions belonged to someone else's experience. The airlock cycled with mechanical precision that sounded different from the grinding stress patterns I'd heard for hours. Through internal cameras, I watched systems responding to commands with reliability that contradicted every equipment failure we'd documented since beginning surveillance operations. Sir, EVA recovery shows normal operational parameters. Corin coordinated life support systems displaying atmospheric readings inconsistent with weapons-grade contamination. If she's experiencing radiation sickness, we'll know soon enough. Through external cameras, I watched our recovery system engage Tasia's suit with mechanical precision. Her vital signs transmitted through EVA equipment showed readings fluctuating between normal operational parameters and critical system failure, as if monitoring equipment couldn't decide which data set was accurate. The recovery arm brought her inside with movements that felt too smooth after hours of equipment functioning at the edge of catastrophic failure. Through the airlock viewing port, I could see her helmet seals intact, life support systems showing green indicators that contradicted every radiation exposure calculation we'd made. Commander, she's... NYM stared at displays showing Tasia's suit systems functioning normally. Her EVA gear shows routine maintenance operation, not exposure to lethal radiation. Temperature stable, communication clear, all systems green. The airlock finished its cycle with electronic precision that sounded like equipment functioning exactly as designed. I helped Tasia remove her helmet with movements that felt automatic, watching her face for signs of radiation sickness that would confirm our surveillance mission's reality. Her eyes focused clearly on mine without the cellular damage patterns that should have been evident after exposure to weapons-grade contamination. Commander, the transmission array. She looked around Station Nereid's command center with confusion that matched my own. Everything's working normally. The external communication systems, the deep-sea relay network, all functioning within standard parameters. All functioning normally. I checked communication logs showing our emergency transmission to surface forces, but receipt confirmation remained uncertain. The navigation buoy that should have relayed nuclear strike warnings to Fleet Command showed operational status, without any record of emergency data transmission. Tasia, radiation exposure assessment? She consulted EVA suit monitors that should have recorded cellular damage in real time. Sir, my equipment shows routine maintenance EVA. Background radiation normal, no contamination detected. Life support systems never registered exposure beyond standard deep-sea operational levels. I stared at her through emergency lighting that had failed completely during torpedo approach, now functioning with steady illumination that felt like normal station operations. Around us, Station Nereid hummed with environmental systems maintaining crew comfortable conditions instead of fighting losing battles against contaminated flooding. NYM, sensor review. Show me detection logs from the past 14 hours. She accessed surveillance data with equipment that had been failing systematically, now responding to commands with digital precision. Sir, I'm reading. Inconsistent records. Some logs show 9 nuclear contacts maintaining coordinated strike formation. Other sensor arrays show normal deep-sea traffic patterns with no hostile signatures detected. Inconsistent records. I looked at displays showing tactical data we'd compiled during surveillance operations, nuclear contact positions, torpedo guidance signatures, radiation contamination patterns. The information appeared complete and internally consistent, but Surface Command operated without any awareness of nuclear threats we'd documented with mathematical precision. Communication check with Fleet Command. Request confirmation of emergency transmission receipt. Understood, sir. NYM coordinated systems that had lost surface contact for hours, now connecting with fleet communication networks showing normal operational status. Fleet Admiral Morrison responding. Sir, he's asking about routine patrol status. No mention of emergency transmission or nuclear threat warnings. No mention of nuclear threats. I checked station chronometers showing 14 hours elapsed since beginning surveillance mission, but Surface Command logged our last check-in as routine patrol status 6 hours ago, during the time we should have been documenting coordinated nuclear deployment. Sir, what do we tell Fleet Command? Corin looked around Station Nereid's control systems, showing normal operational parameters instead of cascading failure patterns we'd monitored through our surveillance mission. Do we report nuclear contacts that our sensors can't confirm? Emergency transmission that surface forces never received. I stared at detection displays showing deep-sea monitoring data that fluctuated between normal patrol readings and nuclear threat documentation, depending on which sensor arrays provided information. Some systems confirmed everything we'd experienced during 14 hours of surveillance operations. Others showed only routine deep-sea patrol, with no hostile contacts detected. Commander, my EVA mission. Tasia checked equipment logs, showing maintenance operations instead of emergency repair work performed under lethal radiation exposure. The communication array required standard alignment adjustment, not emergency repair. But I remember fighting radiation sickness while transmitting nuclear strike warnings. She remembered experiences that didn't match equipment logs from her own EVA suit. I looked around Station Nereid's command center at personnel processing memories of nuclear threat surveillance that may or may not have occurred, documented in sensor logs that couldn't agree on which data represented actual events. Sir, Fleet Command requesting immediate status report. NYM coordinated communication systems, showing normal operational contact with surface forces. Admiral Morrison sounds concerned about delayed response to routine check-in protocols. Routine check-in protocols. Not emergency nuclear threat response, not coordination with surface missile defense systems preparing for coordinated strike formation. Fleet Command operated as if our surveillance mission had never detected anything beyond normal deep-sea patrol activities. I looked at my hands, steady now despite 14 hours of documenting approaching nuclear holocaust. Around Station Nereid's command center, equipment functioned with reliability that contradicted every system failure we'd experienced during torpedo approach and structural compromise. NYM, send routine patrol status to Fleet Command. All systems operational, no threats detected. Sir? She stared at me with confusion that reflected my own uncertainty about which reality was accurate. What about the nuclear contacts? The coordinated strike formation? The emergency transmission Tasia risked her life to send. I checked detection displays one final time, watching sensor readings fluctuate between normal patrol data and nuclear threat documentation. Some systems confirmed 9 hostile contacts maintaining launch positions. Others showed empty ocean with background noise indicating routine deep-sea traffic. Report routine patrol status. No hostile contacts detected. The transmission went through communication systems that had failed during torpedo approach, now functioning with digital precision that felt like normal station operations. Through speakers, I heard Fleet Admiral Morrison acknowledge our status report with routine acknowledgement. No concern about delayed response. No questions about nuclear threat warnings that may or may not have been transmitted. Around us, Station Nereid maintained position and depth with mechanical precision that spoke of systems functioning exactly as designed. But in failing emergency lighting that now provided steady illumination, I could see my crew processing memories of experiences that equipment logs couldn't confirm. Commander, what do we do now? Corin looked around control systems showing normal operational parameters. Do we continue patrol? Do we investigate sensor inconsistencies? Do we request technical support for detection equipment showing conflicting data? I stared through external cameras at deep ocean darkness where 9 nuclear contacts had maintained coordinated strike formation for hours, now showing only empty water and background radiation consistent with routine deep-sea monitoring. Somewhere in crushing darkness above us, surface forces continued normal operations unaware of nuclear holocaust that might begin in 3 hours and 47 minutes, if our surveillance documentation was accurate. We continue patrol operations, monitor deep-sea traffic patterns, report any anomalous contacts through standard communication protocols. Standard protocols. Not emergency nuclear threat procedures, not coordination with missile defense systems, not warnings about coordinated strike formations that might exist only in sensor logs showing inconsistent data from detection equipment that couldn't agree on which readings were real. I looked at Station Nereid's crew processing uncertainty about 14 hours of surveillance mission that may have documented nuclear deployment, or may have been sensor malfunction generating phantom threats. Around us, deep ocean darkness pressed against hull that had been compromised by torpedo impact and acoustic weapons, or had maintained structural integrity throughout routine patrol operations. The chronometer showed current time with digital precision, but couldn't confirm whether nuclear launch would occur in 3 hours and 47 minutes, or whether coordinated strike formation existed only in detection logs that Surface Command never received. Through speakers, normal deep-sea ambient sound replaced torpedo guidance signals and nuclear engine thrum that had promised annihilation arriving within minutes. But in the crushing darkness beyond our cameras, I could still hear mechanical precision that might be weapons systems, or might be Station Nereid's own equipment functioning exactly as designed. We would continue patrol operations in deep ocean darkness, monitoring traffic patterns that might include nuclear deployment or might represent routine submarine operations, transmitting status reports to surface forces that would receive warnings about Holocaust beginning in 3 hours and 46 minutes, if our emergency transmission reached navigation relays. If Fleet Command believed data from personnel whose equipment couldn't confirm which reality was accurate, the ambiguous warning was sent. Whether anyone received it, whether the threat was real, whether Station Nereid had documented nuclear war or equipment failure, that would remain uncertain in crushing darkness where detection systems showed whatever truth they chose to display. I looked at my crew, processing memories of experiences that might save millions of lives or might represent systematic sensor malfunction, knowing that in 3 hours and 45 minutes we would discover which version of reality was accurate. Or we would continue patrol operations in deep ocean darkness, never knowing which memories were real.